Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dungeon Dive. Daniel here. Alright, so as you can see, I am here set up with Warhammer Quest Blackstone Fortress, a game that I've been playing over the last week, finally kind of really diving into the main box campaign, the campaign that comes with the base game. In addition to that, I have also started reading the novel, the supplemental novel written by Darius Hinks. I'm only about 30 pages into it, but I'm really enjoying it so far, and it's giving me a lot of background into some of the characters and some of the things that are going on. So I really like these Games Workshop novels that tie into their games. They're a little cheesy. They're not great literature or even like really great genre literature, but it is cool to have an option to kind of read more about the world. And that is one of the things that I think Blackstone Fortress does so well. It really creates a strong sense of time and place. And I'd say it does that as good, if not better, than any other game I can think of. One of the ways it does do that is through, all of its fluff and fiction, the novel that you have, and then in addition to that, you have this whole background material that you can read. This all comes with the base game here, and this has a ton of really cool information about the characters and the place, the setting, the time that all of this is taking place in. And so while you're playing the game, while you're going through the quest and exploring and having your combat and non-combat encounters and all that kind of stuff, going into the Blackstone Fortress to try to solve your quest, and then leaving and going back to Precipice, which is like your staging area, your town, your settlement. All the while you're just creating this world, or the game is creating this world that you really feel like these characters are living in. And I think that is probably the game's biggest strength. Next to its general look. I mean, this game just looks amazing on the table. I love this game setup. The colors are really cool. The minis are cool. All of the cards have really nice art and good flavor text and fluff and all of that kind of stuff. And it really does look like a futuristic game on the table. Just the shape of everything and how everything plays out. So I will say that one of the things that I enjoy most about this game is also one of the things that I think is the game's biggest problem, and that is its campaign set. It's the progress through the campaign. So I know I mentioned in my broad overview of the game that I filmed right when the game came out, the campaign in this is super involved. It feels more like a campaign that you might play in an RPG, in a computer RPG, like a massive multiplayer game, like World of Warcraft or something, in the sense that you're going through these smaller scenarios that are randomly generated by this exploration deck. And you're going to have your series of non-combat encounters and combat encounters, 4 of each. And you're going through these, trying to find these clues and to get money to upgrade your character. And then you're going back to your settlement, the Precipice, and you're going to take those clues that you found on your little kind of randomly generated missions. And you're going to take those clues and you're going to go on basically what are raids against strongholds, against bosses. And so it does kind of feel like that MMO style. You're playing, you're kind of, you're beefing up your character, you're getting things, you're preparing what you need in order to go fight a boss, to go on a raid. And while that is super cool in this game, I do feel that the core campaign in the base box set might be a little too long for what it has to offer in terms of variety. There just isn't a ton of variety in the things that you are doing from session to session to warrant the length. I mean, the length, it could be a very long campaign. You're talking like maybe like 40 hours, I've heard. And I just don't know if the variety is there to hold the interest that for that long. Each time you go out on an expedition, you're trying to find 4 clues, and you need 4 clues to unlock one of the raids on one of the strongholds. And then there are 4 strongholds, and then you have to do a final raid on the hidden vault. And so there's a lot of gameplay here, and it would be more interesting if things during these initial kind of non-raid, non-stronghold missions, these randomly generated missions, were just if there was a little more variety in terms of things you're doing on a moment-to-moment basis. A lot of the combat, even though there are a ton of different maps set up, a lot of the combat does start to feel the same. And there isn't a huge variety of enemies. So you have you have your trader guardsmen, you have your over here, you have your negavolt cultists, and then you have some Urgolds here. And then you're also going to have some spindle drones and some chaos beastmen. You might eventually run into some psychers and some chaos. Here's like your psychers, and then maybe some chaos marines. As you start to get some of the expansions, you can throw those enemies in, which is something I might do, like your cultists and maybe like your poxwalkers or your plague marines. But I also am thinking, well, maybe I just want to keep the expansion materials special for the expansions, because while I think that maybe the base game is a little long for what it has to offer, the expansions, I think, are about the most perfect length. They're shorter campaigns, and they kind of cram like this entire experience from the core box into just a shorter time frame. And I think that might actually be better. So what I'm thinking about doing is I want to play through most of the base game, but I'm not sure I'm going to like legit play through everything, because I might want to just speed it up a little bit and then open up the hidden envelope that comes with it, and then start to move into some of the expansion content, which I think seems to be much better. So the way I'm playing the game is I am actually playing with some of the supplemental rules from the annual, from the White Dwarf 2019 annual. And so this is an annual that collects all of the rules and supplemental materials that were released during the year of 2019 in the various White Dwarf magazines. And so you have all kinds of things. You have different ways to play for the hostile player if you want to play like a 1 versus many. You have different ways to play solo. You have all kinds of new quests, which one of the best new quests actually piggybacks on to the dreaded Ambul expansion. It's called A Deadly Lure. But some of the rules that I'm playing with are these Strike Force rules, and those detail a really simple way to play with fewer than 4 explorers, which was my main complaint when I originally looked at this game. Was like, I just did not want to play with 4 explorers. That is just, it's too much for me. I like to play these games. You guys know my sweet spot for these kinds of games are 2 heroes. And so now we have rules to play with 2 heroes, and it's relatively simple. You just roll some extra, you basically roll your activation dice. So as you know, these games are based off of the Silver Tower rules. Each turn, you're going to roll 4 hero dice for each of your explorers, and those are going to dictate what you can do. In addition to that, you're also going to roll your destiny dice, these are going to a pool of dice that the heroes can use to activate, do different moves. And if you're playing with fewer than 4 explorers, what you're going to do is you're going to take 4 dice for each explorer you're not playing with. So in my case, 8 extra activation dice, and I'm going to roll those, and those kind of become additional fate dice or destiny dice. And each of the explorers can use 4 of those on his or her turn. So you're basically getting double the actions. Now the game still doesn't scale in terms of enemy stats. So your enemy stats are still going to be all the same. They're going to have the same amount of wounds. They're going to do the same amount of wounds to you. But it kind of balances out in that you're going to be able to move your 1 or 2 characters and take out more of the groups of enemies in a single turn. So I think it's balanced out. It does seem, it might even be a little bit easier, just because one of your heroes could do more things. And I'm sure it really does depend on which heroes you are playing with. So I have chosen 2 of my favorite looking heroes. Pious Vorn, she's a missionary zealot, and she has a chain blade and a flamethrower. And then one of the guys from the big box expansion, and that is Godfrey de Montbard, and he is a crusader. So he's like a pure melee character. And I love his mini is super cool with that giant tower shield and his huge like claymore looking sword. I really like this guy. He looks like straight out of Dark Souls or something. And then here is the Pious Vorn with her chain blade flamethrower. Super awesome minis. Love them. So yeah, so those are the first 2 I am playing with, and I'm on my first expedition going in, about halfway through my first expedition. I've already found 1 clue that I need to go on a raid for a stronghold, and I found some money for each of my characters. And I'm just about set up here to finish up, to start this combat. So on this combat, I'm actually facing the Urguls, I am facing the Traitor Guardsmen, and I'm facing the Negavolt Cultists. And take a look at the ship. So each of the heroes has their own ship that they fly into Precipice. And while you're out adventuring, each one of your ships has a special support function that gives you an additional choice of something you can do. And then when you go back to Precipice during your settlement phase, each one of your ships gives you something special you can do while you are camped out. So yeah, I'm not going to go into a whole bunch of detail about how to play the game. There are plenty of videos like that. I did more of a coverage on my previous video for this, but I just kind of wanted to talk in general about some of the things I like I said, excuse me, the world building, that sense of time and place is very cool. It's in depth and it's evocative. I like all the choices you get on your turn with your different dice actions, your different weapon actions and special actions that you can take. There is quite a bit of tactical thinking, but it's not too puzzly, so it's fun. You have to think on the fly quite a bit because of the way that the enemies all have their own behavior charts that you're going to be rolling on. And it is kind of unpredictable, but at the same time, the enemies do act in a somewhat intelligent way, and they are fun to fight. And the enemies do have different weapons. So like this is a sergeant here for the Traitor Guardsmen. This is a flamethrower, and then some of the other characters are armed with melee and pistols. Some of them might have grenades, that kind of thing. So the fights can be fun. Sometimes the maps they look more interesting than they are sometimes. So this is a pretty cool looking map. And the maps can be come in a variety of sizes. This is a fairly large map. Sometimes they're very small and compact. While it looks like there's a lot going on, usually it's only the first couple of turns where things are spread out. But once a couple turns pass, things really do seem to kind of gravitate towards one little chamber. You can position yourself and move around more, and you kind of do have to do that. And I think that's especially true with playing with only 2 heroes. So you do have to think about ways that you're using the map, but sometimes the maps, you set them up and it does feel like not a lot of the space gets used. And so it sometimes it feels like it's a little, you're taking more time to set up the map than it's really worth. So I was thinking about actually going through the large stack of exploration cards and going through the combat cards and pulling out some of the larger maps and just focusing on the smaller maps. But another thing that I really do like, and it has to do with combat here, is the initiative track, which is constantly changing, and you can use actions to move your heroes up, move your heroes back to position them. I've had really bad luck on this expedition where I've always had my first turn be where my heroes are last. Well, I was thinking that was bad luck, but it's actually kind of nice when you're only playing with 2 heroes to have, hopefully the enemies will come to you. At first, you can kind of think about what they're doing, since you don't have a lot of people to tactically deploy on the map. It is sometimes better with fewer to have the enemies go first, I have found. So that's what's happening there. And then, of course, one of the other things I really like is the different resources. So we looked at one of the ships here, right? So not only do the ships come with their own support action you can do while you're on an adventure, not only do they come with your own thing that you can do while you're in town, but each ship also comes with its own deck of items that when you go back to Precipice, you can actually buy these items to take into your next journey, or to take into any quest. Most of the items are one use, but it is kind of cool because it does give you another choice. And because they're one use, you're not so concerned about, you need to think strategically and tactically about when to use those items. And it ends up adding another choice of something you can do on your turn. And that's one thing, that's another thing that this game really excels at, is giving you it is almost kind of a perfect amount and perfect number of decisions to choose from turn to turn. It's not too much where you're going to have, analysis paralysis about what you can do, but you are going to be thinking from moment to moment and adjusting on the fly and thinking about different ways to overcome the challenges that the game sets up for you. So super cool. I think my main complaint about the base game, the box set, is I know it's a weird complaint to say, that the game is too long, because you want a lot of bang for your buck. I don't think I would have minded it being the length that it is if it just had a little more variety in the combat, in the ways that the combat plays out from a session to session. So one of the things that some of the encounter cards will give you are twists, and these can trigger under certain circumstances, and they will give you different things that you're going to have to deal with on when you're on a mission. I do wish there were more of those, because those do seem pretty cool. It would be really fun, I think, to create like a D100 or a D66 table that has all kinds of different things that could happen. So if somebody wants to get on that, I will gladly give you some moral support and maybe throw a few bucks your way on PayPal, like I do for Little Monk and his Warhammer Quest stuff. But that would be really fun. But yeah, this is a neat game. Like I said on my end of the year video from 2019, this game is more supported than just about any other like dungeon crawl I know of. I mean, Games Workshop is just putting in a ton of effort into Blackstone Fortress, and I think as I'm playing through the expansions, I think I'm going to find that it is progressively getting better and more interesting. I think they had a pretty strong basis. Of course, the basis being from Silver Tower, which I think is a masterpiece. So they already had a really great foundation to build upon. And they added some crinkles and some wrinkles and some extra complexity on top of Silver Tower. And they are continuing to add to it, but it's not overwrought. They're not adding so much to where you just feel like, oh my gosh, this is like, it's way too much. In the way that the expansions are played out, you kind of play them as their own little game. You're not just piling a whole bunch of like supplemental material and rules on top of the game you're already playing. So that's super cool, because sometimes when you get with these games with a whole bunch of expansions, by the time you get to your 4th or 5th expansion, you're just like, oh my God, you know, what am I even doing anymore? I can't remember. I can't remember. But the way that this game works is the way each of the expansions has some little modular pieces that you can fit into your base game, but the bulk of each of the boxed expansions is actually its own little self-contained adventure that you're going to be embarking on. So yeah, this is Blackstone Fortress Warhammer Quest. I just wanted to come in and just give some more details since I've been playing it a little bit more, and I feel like with the playing it with the rules for the 2 different heroes, or playing with the rules with only the 2 heroes, not having to worry about 4 heroes, has really increased my enjoyment of the game, because I just enjoy playing these kinds of games with fewer than 4. I never have fun keeping track of 4 heroes in these kinds of games. It ends up being a lot more work than I am willing to put in. So, all right, well, hope you guys enjoyed that, and we will talk to you later. Bye-bye.